Hi everyone. Today I wanted to talk about my spiritual journey and go through that kind of story. It's not something that I talk about a lot because I feel like there's a lot of misconception for good reason within the spiritual and religious areas of thought, because it does take a lot of critical thinking, and it's you know applying a certain amount of faith to something that we don't know and something that we can't be sure of, something that's only feelings or thoughts or ideas. And then again, there's also all of the ways that religion has become corrupted, and spirituality too. There's spiritual narcissism, spiritual psychosis. I don't want to get too into those topics, but I think that it is valuable to have those distinctions. So I've really been interested in religion for so long, forever really. It's always really interested me from not only a personal standpoint, but a scientific and sociological standpoint. I guess we'll get into it later. I should just start with how it all began. When I was young, in elementary school, I was actually the one in my family pushing everyone to go to church. I was like, come on, guys, this is our duty. We have to go to church. And this is because my best friend in elementary school was the daughter of a pastor. And I think it was a Presbyterian church. I remember it being very welcoming, open, and pretty liberal as far as Christian churches go. And I remember having a lot of fun when I was really young. We would, me and my friend, in the beginning, everyone would sit and they would sing worship songs, and me and my friend would dance in the front with some other girls, like just for fun in front of everyone. It was great. And then we go to Sunday school, and I remember a few Bible stories. I remember Jesus saving or healing someone and lifting him through the roof. I don't know. My understanding of the Bible was not strong. Again, I was there for more of a sense of duty, but also a sense of fun. I was really interested in Christianity, but I did not have the capacity to really understand what it was about and to study it and, you know, think about it like that. Anyways, yeah, it was really fun. And I remember after church too, me and my friend, we would play around with other religions. I remember we got really into I guess I don't know if this is another religion. See, this is some ignorance. I'm sorry, and I would look it up, but I'm in the middle of nowhere, kind of. Um, but we would practice we got really into Egyptology, and we would have we would go into the church's sanctuary because her dad was the pastor, and we would make our own ceremonial rituals and stuff, and it was really cool. And that, I think, is where I felt really close to spirit, or close to some greater spiritual feeling. um and it was really fun too. And so, okay, I grow up, I get a little older, I'm still going to church. I'm probably 10 to 12 now. And this is around the age when I had to stop going to Sunday school. So that meant we had to sit through the songs, which, as I got older, that was tough. I couldn't dance, I had to stand. I hate standing. And then after standing through these songs for so long, we had to sit through a long sermon, and I spaced out. I didn't really try to understand the sermons. I was not interested in them. At this point, I was interested in other things. I did not feel like there was stuff for me there. And I joined youth group. I went to youth group a couple times, but I was starting to feel I don't know. I was starting to feel that I was not as Christian as these people were. I feel like they came from, I wouldn't say more like conservative families, but they came from more like Puritan kind of families. And I don't even know if that's true, but like they came from families who were in the church. And my family, we were cleasters, I think is what they call them. We would go to church on Christmas and Easter. I don't even know about if we went on Easter. I think it was just Christmas. But yeah, I remember terrorizing my brother as a kid about Christmas. I'd be like, "What's the meaning of Christmas?" And he'd be like, to get presents." And I'd be like, "No, it's about Jesus." But like, I couldn't even tell you like really much more about Jesus. It's just I was a righteous child. I don't actually know if I wasn't righteous with anyone else, just my brother. I think. Anyways, yeah, so I was going to youth group. It was all right. It was just kind of like something to do. Again, I kind of felt not isolated, but like I didn't really click and get it, you know? So then one day my friend asks me, "Has Jesus talked to you yet?" I was like, "Oh shit. Has he?" Because there was a growing question inside of me and a growing doubt because they would always talk about prayer. And I prayed a lot as a kid. I would say I would pray for gratitude. And I remember distinctly praying for American Girl dolls. I wanted one so bad. And I got one. And honestly, still, sometimes I look at that in my head and I'm like, it worked. Prayer worked. I like have that example in my head, which is kind of silly, but um, obviously that could be attributed to other things. But anyways, in the church, there was a language being used that was like, God has spoken, God speaks to you, Jesus speaks, like a lot of language that implied that I would hear a voice. I did not hear a voice. Probably a good thing. That's probably, that's good. I know that now. But I was really that's where the seeds of doubt were sown, was I don't hear anything back. I'm praying and I'm praying, but it feels like I'm praying to nothing. Like, what is this? Is it not real? And of course, around this time, I'd learned about Santa Claus and like the Tooth Fairy and stuff like that. And so like, the truthfulness of doubting was also starting to become more tangible for me than faith in this religion. And yeah, so my friend is like, "Has Jesus spoke to you?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And she's like, "Well, he spoke to me. He confirmed me." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, I was on the toilet and Jesus came to me and he confirmed me into the faith." And I was like, "Oh, shit." It was like getting your first period. It kind of seemed like it was like something that was like, "You're it. You are a Christian." And I was like, I don't feel anywhere close to that. And I think it's also, I should say that I also had like an equal friend, like an equal close friend of this time who was a staunch atheist. And so there was, and then another friend who was like me, like kind of interested in the church, like going to church, but like not really actually like Christian. And so there was a lot of people around me also kind of validating these doubts that I had. So, okay, by this time I'm entering middle school. I have other things on my mind. I was a Girl Scout for all of elementary school, but by the time I entered middle school, I decided to quit because I wanted to focus on being popular. So, I also quit the church, and I also quit swim team. I quit a lot of things around this time, which is actually interesting. I've never thought of that. But yeah, I kind of, the doubt was growing, the atheism was growing, and I decided I didn't think that I believed in it, and I stopped going to church. Because also at this time, me and that friend had kind of drifted apart. You know, not because of anything, just because of growing up. Um, anyways, so yeah, for a while, I'd say I was probably an atheist a couple years, like maybe 12 to 14. And I think, I don't know, I wasn't a staunch atheist because as soon as I think my mom told me about the term agnostic, I was like, oh, that's what I am. I'm agnostic. And I still, honestly, I feel like that is the strongest term. I would say I'm a spiritual agnostic now. Um, but at this time, I wasn't very spiritual. I was a teenager. I was very focused on teenager things. So I was just an agnostic, and um, basically, I guess you probably know what agnostic means, but if you don't, it's pretty much just like a who am I to say? I don't know. Is God real? Is he not real? Is there truth to this religion? Is there more to life? I don't know. It's not my business. I know what I know, and it's not that. So, I think, at the core that I still hold today is like we can never be sure of this stuff until, we have scientific backing of certain things. And, as science progresses, it's easier to find that and expand in that way. And, sometimes it negates things, but it's the same like new science negates old science sometimes. And new science also negates religion sometimes. Or I feel like new science can affirm religion, and we don't really look at that as much. But anyways, I was agnostic for a long time, and then I would say the next time that I came into contact with any kind of spiritual faith or ideas was when I was 17. It was my senior year of high school, and I was going through it. Senior year of high school sucked. The town burned down. I had a horrible job where I was working like full-time hours while I was in school and basically running the corn dog stand. And I was dating this guy in secret, and we broke up, and he took all my friends. So I could, and then all the rest of my friends, like who weren't friends with him, like my real friends, they all dropped out of high school or graduated. And so I was just in this horrible place. It was dark and stressful. And I feel like but at the same time, when I think back on it, this was the most potent feeling of spirituality that I'd ever experienced. Is there's about like half of the year from about like September to December. It was just shit, really. Sorry. It was just bad. And December, I remember it because it was winter break, and I got really into Willow Smith, her album Ardipithecus. And great album. I love it. It's like her first album when she was like 15. Like she did the whip my hair thing and then took a break, and then Ardipithecus, still so good and holds such deep meaning to me. But in it, she explores a lot of spiritual ideas. She talks about astral projection. She talks about, I guess that's the main one that I remember. Uh, she talks about like, I don't know, all the kind of woo woo, like she mentions like Merkabas, like all this sacred geometry. And I remember staying up one night researching into these things, and I went down a rabbit hole, and I was like, it kind of blew my mind. And it also, brought me a sense of comfort and purpose and meaning during this really hard time of my life. And so, yeah, and it also sparked the healing and the interest, I think, in spirituality and religion. I think this is where the real root of it started. And so, I tried astral projecting. And you know what? I didn't astral project, but I discovered some interesting things about like how, proprioception and how our mind interprets stimuli and how we can change that. Like it was kind of like a form of meditation where like I saw a website that was like, this is how you astral project. And it was like, just focus on one part of your body and focus on uncoupling your perception of that body part from where it actually is in space. So like you keep your hand still, fingers easiest to start with, and like just focus on like feeling like you're moving your finger without actually doing it. And it was hard for me to achieve like full body. I could never really like fully detach, but I could get to this point where I could make myself feel like I was doing waves or I was expanding and contracting or like I don't know, flippy flopping. And so that was like, I was like, wow, you know, the power of the mind. And then I got into, I don't know if Willow Smith led to here. I don't know the connection, maybe the research led to here, but I got into chakras. And I want to say that chakras have been colonized a lot. And, you know, I am going to share a story of like I researched into chakras, but I wasn't practicing them. I definitely, what do you call it? I definitely appropriated chakras, and it's a tricky thing because it helped me so much. Like it that was like the real breakthrough out of my depression. And so, but at the same time, like I didn't fully understand the history. I didn't fully, you know, like obviously I was researching it. I was going to good sources, but I don't know. It could have been better. I just want to give that disclaimer. And they're still important to me, and I'm still like learning and actually, you know, making sure that the sources that I'm going to are from Indian practitioners, like people like who actually come from the belief system that and the culture that is has to do with chakras. Anyways, so I discovered chakras, and I just the way of conceptualizing the different parts of being that make you a balanced person was really integral to my healing at that time. I wasn't conceptualizing them as energy centers. That's the part that I didn't understand at that time. And now I think, you know, now I'm like 24. I would say when I was around 23, it kind of clicked of like, okay, this is what energy means in our bodies. So, but I was just kind of using them as a visualization technique, and I did a lot of studying, and I would do meditations on YouTube for specific chakras. And the part that stuck most with me was the colors. I would meditate on these colors and these ideas. So, like, you have your base chakra is red, and it's all about safety and that kind of thing. And um, you have your heart chakra, it's green, and your throat chakra is blue, and that's about communication. And so I would meditate on these like every night and really focus on feeling better because I was in a really dark place, as I mentioned. And I also went thrifting at the time because I had all this money from this horrible job and I was still in high school. So I went on a thrifting spree and I bought all the colors of clothes that like corresponded to the chakras. So like if let's say if I was going to school and I really wanted to cultivate a strong sense of power that day, then I would wear yellow. Or I have a lot of green stuff because love the heart chakra. That was a big one for me of opening that up and like opening up love back into the world so I can feel it back to myself. And I also loved green. It was spring during this time. That's a whole other thing. I feel like the just springtime and the bloom during this time. I swear it was just this like really potent feeling of moreness, of transcendence. And I haven't really gotten it that strongly since. And um, that's okay because it was dark. It was a dark time. It came from struggle. But, anyways, it was really, it's hard to describe. And then also, okay, at this time, so that was in like December, then spring starts to come, and I enroll in a spring class at the community college for Intro to Religious Studies. And oh my God, out of all my years of college, this was my favorite class that I ever took. It was so interesting. We learned about the difference between like the phenomenal and the noumenal, and we learned about all these mystics, and we learned about asceticism and myth. And I remember there was like one day where I had a really hard day at school in high school. It was a night class, and literally it was like there was like a school shooter threat, and my parents still sent me to school. Thanks, mom and dad. But it was like stressful and horrible. And so I get to the religious class and we're talking about death. We're talking about death in all these different religions. And that was just one of the most profound classes I had ever been to because I had this horrible day. I was fearing death, I was fearing the future. And I get to class and we learn about what do all these different religions believe about death? How do they conceptualize it? How do they work through it? So interesting. And there was a book, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. I bought that book, and later that spring I read maybe one chapter, so a third. It's like I guess I read one part. I read about a third of the book, and it's it's a dense book, and it gets really into like the nitty-gritty. So that book was really interesting to me, and the first part was like, wow, it really transformed my understanding of death. I'm very lucky to not have loved ones of mine who have passed, and I think I've been able to contemplate death before experiencing the loss. So it's been interesting, and I'm grateful for that experience. Um, and another thing was during this time, one of my assignments was to attend a church and write about it. And so my grandma, she's like my step grandma. This I'm saying that because so she is Jewish, and I'm saying that because Judaism is passed matrilinearly. So I guess I'm clarifying that I'm not Jewish. Like she didn't pass it down to me. But so my grandma, yeah, she's Jewish, and so we went to a there's a rabbi. We went to there's yarmulkes. Shit. So, oh God, I forget what the Jewish church is called. I know You guys are screaming it at me. I'm screaming it at me. But I went to one of those and we went to a service, and I didn't expect to be so deeply moved, but it was again about death. And it was the first time the rabbi used this kind of metaphor for death about like we're all water droplets and death is going back into the ocean. And our consciousness is a droplet right now. When we die, we go back to the ocean of consciousness. And that was my first time hearing that, and I was like, wow. I spent a lot of time at the beach after that, just watching the waves and thinking about consciousness and death and feeling so comforted in the face of so much grandness. And yeah, it was a beautiful service. And me and my grandma, we gave each other blessings. We got to turn to each other. We called each other Aleph and Beta. And we gave each other blessings, and I remember putting my heart and soul into that blessing and like really feeling like I received it back, because this was again during such a hard time, and I really, it resonated with me. And so after that, I graduate high school, I go to college, I joined the college swim team, and this is kind of, this was, I don't know, I was taking some religious studies classes as electives, but they weren't hitting the same. I took like the history of Satan. It was the worst class ever. It was all just like source texts, like original Babylonian texts, and then like no instruction. And then like in class, we'd take like quizzes on Minecraft, which sounds good in theory, don't get me wrong, but it just like, it was like, okay, but when are you going to teach us? Anyways, yeah. Okay, so in community college, I went to community college for 3 years. I did swimming. That swimming took up a lot of my time, all of my energy, and it was hard for me to feel anything. I don't know. It took up so much. I wasn't really filling my cup spiritually or in many other areas, like creatively. I was feeling pretty drained, and even intellectually, even though I was in school, like, I don't know, I didn't have the time to think about the stuff that I wanted to. I don't regret it. That was a great experience in so many ways. Physically, like my connection to my body, it was a great way to experience that, and it was hard. Um, I think, I was really interested in the light at the bottom of the pool and in finding a spiritual meaning of swimming, because oh my god, the meaninglessness that I felt, it's not even something that I enjoy. And so that's why I was like so starved for meaning. And I found it I think in a very secular way of just really striving. I learned about striving. The first season I just kind of was like, whatever, I'll do it. And it sucked. But then the second season, I was like, I want goals. I want to push myself. I want to see what I can do. That made it a lot better. But okay, not much spiritually there. Then I went to college. I moved away for the first time. I was about 20. And um, yeah, I don't know if I had much. I think around this time, I was starting to discover prayer again and to open myself up to praying. And, to this day, it's something I feel weird about admitting that I pray. I don't know why. I feel like there's like a lot of, oh, I'll pray for you, I'll pray for you. I don't know. Prayer is often conflated with Christianity, and, you know, what I didn't mention is in high school, I was, learning a lot about like all of the corruption in Christianity, like the Catholic Christian church complex, I would call it. Like, not Christianity, the religion, or no, not Christian mysticism, but in Christian, like, church and that power structure. Anyways, okay, so I do pray now, and I pray for things that I want. I pray for out of gratitude. And this is really interesting, and I hesitate to admit this even more, but I feel like I understand now what it is meant by God talking back to you or receiving a message from God, because I think it's very similar. It's intuition. It's very similar because, you know, when I pray now, there's a feeling, you know, and it kind of comes in response. And I don't want to, I'm not attributing it to a God, or it very well could come from, you know, myself. I think the way I conceptualize intuition is like intuition, because I always worry like, oh, I have a lot of anxiety, and I'm like, I have this intuitive feeling that this is gonna happen. So like my intuition's already always right, so it's gonna happen. Oh my God. But then I think about like, well, okay, intuition is right because intuition is telling you how you feel about something. And so it's going to be right because that's how you feel. It's not like, oh, tomorrow the sky is going to be purple. I feel it. Like, no, it's, yeah, I would say that. And so I think that prayer and these responses to prayer are kind of a tapping into that intuition of like, this is what I feel is it, you know? But, and I try to be like, I remember this story from the memoir Educated by Tara Westover, and she was a victim of really spiritual abuse from her family. And I remember a story of her mom would always do this finger tapping thing, and it would guide her life. Like, how, I don't know the mechanics of it. Well, it's not very mechanical. It was a misguided kind of superstition. But I think about that a lot, and I always try to make sure I'm like, okay, is this idea that I have a form of finger tapping? You know, is it actually woo woo, not, you know? So, okay, yeah. Anyways, I started prayer again, and um by this time I was studying cognitive science. Now, this is like, I love cognitive science. I love brain sciences and, you know, psychology, neuroscience, and I really love religious studies, combining them together. And I think what is really telling is that every project or essay that was open-ended, open topic, for any of my classes, I would tie it back to religion somehow. I remember doing a speech on like why religion is declining in America. And I don't know if I would agree with that now. I think that religion is declining in pop culture, not in America. Um, but anyways, and I had a humans in technology class. It was like a philosophy class, and I did a presentation on the idea of like technology as a god, like, because through all of these readings, like these philosophy readings, I found a lot of similarities between the way these philosophers were talking about technology and the way that historical like theologians have talked about God. And so I looked at those intersections. I wasn't saying that technology was God, but I was exploring the idea of like, how do we conceptualize technology in a similar way to the way that we conceptualize religion. Okay, now I'm working full time, and I'm really just starting to, again, tap into the spirituality sense. Um, when I think of spiritual closeness, I think of my hometown, Northern California, and I'm pretty far from there. Not super far, about 8-hour drive, but um, yeah, as you can see, there's no redwood trees, and redwood trees and rivers, that's what speaks to my soul. And I'm feeling, far away from that now. And so that's been interesting. It's been an interesting um, to see how it affects my spiritual well being. But right now, I'm kind of on a journey of I'm doing the artist's way, and it's really spiritual. I didn't expect it to be so spiritual, but I think that's because I'm leaning into the spirituality really hard, and I love it. I really love the idea of creativity and creating things as a way of being in communion with the spirit and God. And I want to say that also, like, my conceptualization of God, I use the language God, and sometimes I use the word he, I feel like. But I believe God does not have pronouns, because how could God? How could there be pronouns for something so transcendental and like something that we can't even truly conceptualize? I think that God is, you know, within us and without us. It's not, a person. It's not, I don't know. I feel like everything is a an expression, and I think that we can tap into that expression of God in ourselves and around us. And yeah, I'm really okay. So where I'm at now, spiritual, exploring, really wishing I could get a doctorate in in cognitive religious studies. I've wanted that for so long, and I've just like remembered it now. Like, I forgot about it, but what a pipe dream. If I had the money, if I had the time, but maybe I will. Anyways, I think I'm going to keep studying, and I really want to. What I'm interested in now is um, mythics. No, mystics. I'm interested in mystics. I'm interested in reading the Bible. I've never read the Bible, but I'm interested in that. And um, I'm interested in just reading more books and exploring this more. And then also just like channeling my spirituality through my creativity. And yeah, I feel like I'm missing out important things, which, it sucks because I'm going to leave here. I'm going to leave this beautiful view where I'm shrouded in shadow. So I won't be able to add anything, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. I'm creative. How do I wrap this up? I want to wrap this up by saying that spirituality, I feel like, is a very taboo topic because it has been abused in many ways. And it can also be taken in many directions that it's not meant to be. And it can be taken in unhealthy directions. So I don't know. I want to be more open about talking about these things, because I also think that, spirituality can be a real center of goodness and a real, like, inner compass towards goodness and meaning in your life. And obviously, we have to use critical thinking. We have to keep our heads on straight and, always stay open and learning. But it's just, it feels so important, not only to your well-being now, but to your work and everything we do in life and the way we relate to one another. And yeah, I'm really excited to continue to dive into this. I feel like very motivated now. Just a few weeks ago, I was in crisis. I was like, I don't feel any spiritualness. Like it's what, and so, now I'm on that journey and I'm feeling it and we're going somewhere. I might make another video. I might make more videos talking about my new studies. So if you're interested in that, comment down below. Thank you for watching. I'm also interested if you guys have any interesting stories with religion. I would love to hear your, sorry, bug check. I would love to hear your perspectives and your stories, and if you have also any like sources, like resources, like books that you liked or podcasts or anything that you really find interesting and meaningful, please comment them down below, and I may see you next time.